So how have your tenants responded when you raised rents like that?
Fairly positively. They know what's going on. They know what the alternative is.
What's the alternative?
Good luck trying to find a rental. It's a nightmare out there.
We're here in downtown Toronto, smack in the middle of Canada's affordability housing crisis, for the Canada International Property Show. Housing developers, investors, and property managers are all here to celebrate their winnings, and we're here to ask them about it. There is something a little ironic about having a conference catering to the wealthiest percent of Canadians in a public library open to all.
The rents have been going up quite steadily. Properties that were renting out for, like in Mississauga, $2,500, $2,400 are now $3,500, $3,600. Basements are going for $1,600, $1,700 a month.
And are the landlords you work with generally happy with that rise in rent, or would they like to increase it even further?
They would like to increase even further, because I have clients that were paying, let's say, $1,700, $1,800 in mortgages. Now they're up to like $3,000. And no tenant is leaving. Unless they're moving out of the country, like they're not moving houses, they're not moving condos. Nobody wants to go anywhere.
Because there's nowhere else to go.
Unless they move from like Mississauga to, let's say, Niagara, they're gonna price themselves out.
If the landlord decides to sell the property, they would have to find somewhere else. But nowhere right now is seeming affordable for tenants. So it really feels like tenants are
Not in the immediate neighborhoods. Nowhere close by, sometimes not even the same city. It's just the unfortunate truth, but that's how it is.
I'm a student, and I'm looking forward to buying a building one day.
So you want to be an investor at some point.
At some point, yeah.
How do you feel about the cost of housing?
Yeah, so
As
I'm 20 years old, and I think when my parents were buying properties and like starting to start their careers, it was a lot easier for them.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just a lot more barriers that like this generation and those that are coming up are gonna have to face.
Do you rent right now, or do you live at
rent.
home?
Yeah, and so it was almost took me a year to find a place to live for school. I'm at U of T.
Mm-hmm.
I'm studying there. Took a lot, and the market's all jacked up.
What do you think Canadian investors are looking for when they talk to international developers here?
I think there's a lot of frustration in Canada in general, and that is
From investors?
from investors, just politically, economically, taxation-wise. So I feel like that is kind of catching on with people saying, hey, you know what, maybe there's life outside of Canada. Let me look into Costa Rica. Let me look into Mexico. Let me look into Dubai. For what we're doing here, like we're here just talking about Calgary, we're seeing a tremendous response of people saying, even though they're Toronto, they're like, let me go to Calgary. Taxes are half as much. Properties are half as much. Rents are way less. So people are fed up, and they're looking for places outside of Canada, and especially outside of Toronto.
I think so far, a lot of Canadians seem to be very interested in properties in the Bahamas.
Why is that?
There are two advantages. One, it's a beautiful country in the first place, but there are also a lot of Canadians building homes or purchasing condos, apartments, and then putting them on the rental market. So there's a very, very aggressive real estate rental market for short-term rentals. And so the Airbnb, the other home away from home type rentals seems to be attracting quite a bit of Canadians. And then there's the tax benefits of investing in the Bahamas. No income tax, no capital gains tax, and the like. So anything that you invest, you're pretty much getting all the returns tax-free. So that's a very, very big incentive.
Do you get a sense of how Canadians feel about our domestic real estate market in your conversations?
It's a good investment for those that can afford to purchase real estate because there's a good return, apparently.
How many properties are in your portfolio altogether?
In total, approximately 10.
You personally, have you been forced to raise rents to account for the rising interest rates?
Yeah, I mean, we have. Luckily, some of my units are not under rent control, so we've been able to raise them to help cover our costs, because obviously some of them, we have huge costs to run a variable mortgage.
How much did you raise those rents?
Reasonable amount. Like never what the market was, a little bit below to let them know we want to work with them. So, maybe $200-300 on a unit that might be renting for $2,300. I know I've heard horror stories of people increasing $500, $1,000, but we're just trying to keep it reasonable because it's way easier to keep the tenant and try to replace them as well.
So how have your tenants responded when you raised rents like that?
Fairly positively. They know what's going on. They know what the alternative is.
What's the alternative?
Good luck trying to find a rental. It's a nightmare out there. People are charging up to a year to 2 years of rent up front if you're lucky to find a place.
You said these properties wouldn't get built without investors, but there are alternatives to for-profit housing. Like nonprofit housing is increasingly part of our national conversation. Why isn't that a model that would allow for new housing? Why do we need to only think about the for-profit model?
That's a great question, by the way, and that's an epic failure of leadership. That's a failure of government.
Do you have any nonprofit investments?
I personally don't have any nonprofit investments. I do have a nonprofit charity. We provide mindfulness and yoga training for children.